Hi Stampers, this is Laurie Ballard from Lauriebstamping. I'm coming to you today with part 3 of the art gallery class that I have done. This is the third part of the 3, and this is going to be the YouTube premiere. And today I'm going to show you how to make these 4 cards. I will start out by saying that I did not make envelopes for these 4 cards because you guys all know how to make the envelopes. We decorate the flaps, stamp something on the front. And so I did not take the time to make the envelopes, but I will show you how I created these 4 cards and I'll put them all together with you. So give me just a second to get set up and we'll get started. Okay, so we're ready to stamp, and we are going to start by stamping 2 of the large flowers and 1 of the cluster flowers. The large flowers, we're going to start with the base in petal pink. I'm going to stamp that twice. Hold it down for a second to let the ink transfer. The other one towards the top. All right, and then we're going to stamp the second layer in terracotta tile. And that is the more detailed stamp. I'm just going to try to line it up. Pull it towards me so I can see it. Okay. Then I'm going to stamp 1 of the petals and the stems stamp in Mossy Meadow ink. Stamp that kind of between the 2. Okay. And then on the second cluster flower, I'm going to stamp the first time. I'm going to clean my stamp because if it is not good and clean, that light soft sea foam, it's really distorted. So you want to make sure you have a very clean stamp when you start using this soft sea foam. Okay, so I'm going to stamp the first time. And if the these little baby's breath looking things and the leaf don't come out okay, that's okay because we're going to cut those away. So then we're going to stamp it a second time in Poppy Parade ink. And I am going to clean it again just to try not to contaminate my ink pad. Even though soft sea foam is so light, it really wouldn't hurt the Poppy Parade stamp pad, most likely. Okay, so I'm going to stamp it again. And this time you do want to give the flowers time. And I said you didn't want those. That is the only part on the first one. The baby's breath looking thing and the leaf was the really part you did need. It's this one that we're cutting them away. This one we want the bigger flowers. Okay, and so then actually I do need this Poppy Parade one more time. I am going to stamp the Poppy Parade in one of the centers with the stamen stamp. And it's fairly light, so you can't really tell. You can see it a little bit on there. But on the other clustered flowers, I am actually stamping in Mary Merlot ink because Poppy Parade is a pretty bold color, so it needs something really rich and dark in order for it to really show up on it. And so I felt like Mary Merlot, it almost looks like Blackberry Bliss when it's wet, but it does dry a little bit lighter than Blackberry Bliss does. And I need to stamp one sentiment, and I'm just going to grab one more scrap of paper here and stamp the thank you in terracotta tile. just going to stamp on the side right here because it doesn't need to be very big. Because we're going to cut that out with that little decorative, the small one from the art gallery dies. Okay, and so I am going to pause the camera, go cut all these pieces and parts out, and then I will come back and show you how to put the card all together. Just hold on a second. Okay, so I have cut out all of the pieces and parts. And now what I did was I cut out 2 of these small sentiments in the terracotta tile, the smaller of the 2 dies. I cut out 2 of these, and then I cut one in half, and I glued it to the back of the full one. And the reason that I did that, it's similar to what we did in one of the prior classes, where I'm lining up, and I stamped the thank you in terracotta tile on a strip of Whisper White and cut it out. And I'm now lining up where all of the little notches go between the spaces on the Whisper White piece. Because what I want is for everywhere that there is a gap, I want there to be a terracotta tile color behind it, if that makes sense. And because I put the 2 together and I left one extra scallop wider, that left just enough room to leave one little piece of the extra little scallop on each end, and have terracotta tile where every little scallop indentation is. Let me lay it down and see if that helps. Yeah, that helps. Okay, so that's similar to what we did in one of the prior classes. And so I will put that on the card front. And so now we are ready to assemble our card. So we're going to take the petal pink card base and fold it in half and burnish it with a bone folder to get a nice sharp crease. Pop it to lay flat. And we're going to take the embossed piece and just adhere it to the card front. And I am still using Fast Fuse, so I'm going to continue to use that until it's gone. I had a stash, and I've found some that actually work, because I used to fight this stuff really bad. But when they work great. And so I'm trying to use it up. Okay, and so this is 1/4 of an inch smaller, so you're just going to line it up and leave your border around it. Okay, just like that. And you can see the embossing even on the screen, so that's good. And so we're going to take all of the different flowers, and I'm going to put a glue dot at the base of the back of this flower. And that is where I'm going to adhere the stem that I stamped in Mossy Meadow. I'm going to lay that stem right in the center of it. Okay. And then this one, we're going to adhere down just flat onto the card. So I'm just going to put some Fast Fuse on it, on all of the leaves and most of the flower pieces. You could also use mini glue dots, which is usually what I use, but because I have the fuse out, I'm going to use that. And we're going to have the bottom of the stem covered up, so it's going to be stuck down, so I did not put a lot of glue on it. And so I'm just putting this up in towards the upper left corner. And then this other flower, because it's pretty much going to be hidden by that second one, I didn't make a stem for it, but I am going to pop it up on dimensionals. And so I'm going to find my dimensionals. Here they are. And put on several dimensionals. You guys know I like my dimensionals, so I don't like anything to sag, so I will use several. Okay. And so you take your backing off. And I'm going to just lay that to the right of it. And then we're going to take this other one and we're cutting off basically these little, I don't know what these are, but baby's breath looking things, and this leaf that's in red. We're actually scissors out. And then oh, hello. It's like, where did it go? It's right in front of my eyes. All right, and then one of the Whisper White ones, just because the white on the background, I felt like was pretty powerful, so I didn't want to use too much white. But I did want a little bit. So one white one and two pink ones. Whatever shade of that it is. I'm pretty sure that's Blush and Brine. Okay. So then I took, and you guys I think have seen me do this before, but I call it bunny ears. You take and make two little bunny ears. And then you grab it, make a bow, and then you tweak it to be the size you want. Actually, do one a little bit bigger. And you just keep playing with it until you get it the size you want, and pull it till it's tight. And then you can trim it down if you need to, trim the tails. Yeah. Okay. Oops. All right, so let me put it down with a glue dot, and then I will trim the tails. I'm going to grab my good scissors so that I can do that. Okay, so I basically just stuck that down here where that bottom piece attached to the green, just to kind of try to hide that. And then pull the tails down. And at one time I try to see how much better it works with good scissors. All right, there we go. So I trim the tails down, and that's stuck. Then the only thing we have left for the card front is I put in some of these little butterfly gems. And honestly, I love these little things, and I don't know why. I have hardly used them. And honestly, terracotta tile is my least favorite color, and look, that's the only one I've used any of the butterflies. So go figure. It's mainly because this butterfly or this art gallery paper, I think this is the only, well, actually, no, it has Rococo Rose in there too, so I'm not sure why I haven't used others of these, but anyway, and so I'm doing one butterfly one way and another little one down here, going the other way, and I'm going to do another small one up at the top, kind of right up here. And there you go, the card front's done. Then what I'm going to do, and these butterfly gems, last I checked, they are still available, but they are retiring. So if you want those, I would get them quickly because they will be going away soon. And on the inside, I stamped the small flower in petal pink, and I believe that's terracotta tile. And then I stamped the sentiment in terracotta tile, and that sentiment is from the Happy Thoughts stamp set. So I'm going to do that again. It is the one that says the little things you do so well and so often make a big difference to so many people. And so I'm going to stamp that in terracotta tile ink in the center. And just center it a little bit closer to the top, but pretty much centered. It's not so pretty. Okay, and then I need the petal pink and the small flower. in this low corner. And then the stamen of that small flower I did in terracotta tile. Yeah, and I really should clean this because that Marimillo's, it will bleed through. So I do need to clean this real quick. Okay. And then just stamp down. All right, so there is that. Let me close this up before I get my hands all kinds of dirty. All right, and so then I'm going to adhere this to the terracotta tile mat, and I'm just going to use Tombow glue for this, since this might still be a little damp. Just leave an even border and adhere that down. Also, Tombow glue gives you a little wiggle room. I'm trying real hard not to touch where I stamped because I've you guys have seen me make that mistake before. And smear wet ink that's not really dry. So once you get that done, you can adhere this to the inside of your card. And just like that, card number 1 is done. Okay. And now if we were doing envelopes, I would put probably this little flower in the lower left corner of the envelope front, and either stamp some flowers on the envelope flap or put some of this Art Gallery DSP on it. But anyway, we're going to call this done. And so let me pause, clean up my workstation, and move on to card number 2. Okay, for this next card, we're going to do this I Miss You card, and it's kind of a fancy fold card that opens like this. I did not put a sentiment on the inside, but you could. You would want to make sure you made it small enough that it would be hidden behind the front panel. But I left it blank just for signing so that I could write something in there. Since you're sending it as an I Miss You card, most likely you're going to want to say something to the person that you're sending this to. But you could totally put a sentiment on the inside if you wanted to. So let me just show you how I made this. It is a 5.5 by 8.5 card base, just like most of our card bases. It just has an extra score line in it. And so I'll show you how to do that in just a second. You also are going to need, for the inside of the card, a 5.25 by 4 whisper white panel. For the front here, you're going to do a DSP panel, and I'm using the subtle back side of this DSP, and it is 1 7/8 by 5.25. You're also going to use a piece of petal pink at this is 4.5 by 3.25. Then this is the same DSP, it's just the reverse side, the decorative side, and it has the acetate. One of the pieces of the golden acetate lines up and matches the pattern on this DSP. And so I cut out a corresponding acetate piece for this. And it is, both of these are cut at 3 by 4.25. And so they're going to layer here onto the, and they're going to become basically how you look at the card front. And so, and then I already stamped, oops, nope, I didn't stamp, I already cut the piece for the sentiment, and this is from the So Sentimental dies. I believe that's the name of them. I can't even remember that. No, I'm sorry. Stitched So Sweetly dies. It used to go with the So Sentimental stamp set that's retiring. But I used the next to the smallest one from here. And I've already cut that out so that I can hopefully stamp it straight. So let me just show you real quickly how you score this DSP. So, oh, and then there's a piece of 6-inch ribbon. That this is from the Love You Always bundle in the current mini catalog. Okay, so you take and you score your DSP at 4 1/4, which is the halfway mark, like you always would. And be sure you score and don't cut. And then you're going to take and score at 2 1/8, which is exactly halfway down one of these panels. So you basically are taking one of your panels and you're scoring it in half. And that is all we're doing with that. So I'm going to move my trimmer out of the way. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half like we always would and burnish it with your bone folder. Then you're going to take that other score line and you're going to, let me see how I did not get that even, did I? I did not score at 2 1/8. Obviously. You guys are probably looking at me and saying, don't, not there. I must have scored at 2 1/4. So be sure you score it at 2 1/8 because that will make a difference when you go to fold it. And this one will be okay. It will just have an extra little crease. Okay, so learn from my mistakes. Okay, so if you scored it correctly, it will lay down exactly evenly. And then when you open it, it's going to look like that. So this will be a prototype that I will just keep as a pattern. It won't go out anywhere. This one I did perfectly fine and it looks great. So that's how it's supposed to look. It's just like that. Not with this extra little design in it, but anyway. All right, it is what it is. So you will cut, now we can adhere this piece of DSP to this far left flap. And so you're going to put adhesive on the flowered side because we want to use the subtle side. Oh, that's the only bad thing about fast fuse. If you get it where it doesn't belong, it does get, it's pretty sticky stuff, so it does kind of make a mess. All right, so you leave a 1/4 inch border all the way around. Adhere that down. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere my Whisper White, and I am still using Whisper White. I know that the current white cardstock is called Basic White, but I had a kind of a backlog stash of Whisper White, so I am still using Whisper White, but either white will work. All right. So you're just going to do that same 1/4 inch border. There. And fold that shut. And so then on this part, I'm going to go ahead and adhere the DSP to the petal pink panel. And then I will show you, after we stamp our sentiment, I'll show you how we're going to adhere it. So this should have a 1/4 inch panel as well. And I'm going to lay this down, but I'm not going to adhere it just yet. And it does line up, the pattern on the flowers lines up with the acetate if you cut it correctly. Mine might just be a teensy bit off, but it's close enough, it's going to work. So I'm going to set that down, and I'm going to stamp real quick the small flower in petal pink. Right in the center, towards the top, but where the edges of the flower are in the center of these outer parts. Okay. And then I stamped the I Miss You in black memento ink. stamp that right over the flower. Just like that. And I'm going to put this up so I don't get my hands in it. Okay, and so then I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of this. Oops. Okay. And then I'm going to fold this ribbon and kind of make like the breast cancer awareness is what I always think of like this. So hold your acetate down and then just lay this where you think you want it. Line this up. Try not to move your acetate. You're just kind of eyeballing where you think everything needs to go. Okay. I've got my loop too big. Okay, so it would go kind of like that. And that would lay kind of like that. So that's how I want it to look. So what I'm going to do is put just a small piece of Scotch tape. Just a little one. Because that sentiment is pretty small. So I'm just putting enough to catch both edges there, just so I don't have to hold it while I try to make the rest of this work. You wouldn't have to do that part, but I didn't on that one, but for whatever reason, it seemed, maybe it's because I'm filming, but it seemed more difficult to hold it all together this time. So, oops. All right, so once you get that down, then you're going to lay this. Try not to move your acetate. Lay that right over on top of it. And the reason that I didn't adhere the acetate yet is because you don't want it to show. And so now, because we know where all the back is, and I got this tip from another demonstrator, actually. I can't take credit for it. But now that we see where things are hidden, I am going to put a glue dot, one in the, like up here where the leaves are thick. I'm going to put one glue dot down here and one at the top. And then the rest of the time, I'm going to put stuff behind the ribbon and the sentiment where it will all be hidden. And this is a small enough piece, you probably could skip doing this at the bottom and the top, but I just don't want it to flop around just in case somebody's, pulls on it. Since it is, especially on this one, that side is where you're going to potentially could grab it to close it. I don't know, this may be overkill, but that's just what I'm doing. And not a bunch of them, just one at each end. And then the rest of them I'm going to do in the center. And you don't really have to be careful about those, just plop them down. As long as they're behind the sentiment, you'll be good, they won't show. The sentiment or the ribbon, either one. So I'll put one right here. And put one behind this tail. And one behind this tail. That pretty much adheres that side. And then I'm going to put one more right up there. Okay, I think that's probably enough to hold it. So now you want to line it up again with the designs. There we go. Okay. Alrighty then. Now this, you're going to have to be careful when you put it down because only the left side is going to get adhesive. So you kind of want to line it up where you think you need it. And then I just kind of grabbed the spot where was the center and flipped it over. And so I know I don't want to go past where my finger is to put adhesive down. So I am going to put fast fuse because that is a sturdy adhesive. Okay, so you're only going to do the left side, so I'm going to lay it down again flat, line it up. Before I lay this side down, try to line up the right side, because once you start laying down fast fuse, you really don't get a chance to redo it. Okay, so flip it over and make sure you don't have the back showing, and see that crease line doesn't even look that bad. So you can't even really tell, so I might send this out. Anyway, okay, and so now all we have left to do is put, I did want to put some bling, and so I used the Champagne Rhinestone Basic Jewels, and I put one of the biggest ones right in the middle at the bottom, and then I did two of the small ones pretty much even with this on either side of it. That helps you line it up and get them pretty even. Alrighty, and there is card number 2. Lickety split. All right, I'm going to pause, clean up, and I will move on to card number 3. Okay, for card number 3, we're doing a happy birthday card, and this is a very simple card. And on this, the inside of this one, I used a stamp set that was part of Celebration, which is now retired, so I'm going to use something different this time. And I'm also adding a mat to the inside of this one. I did not do that with this one, but I am on this card. So basically, it's your normal standard 8.5 by 5.5. We're going to score it at 4 1/4. Then I've got 2 Bumblebee cardstock panels at 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. One for the card front, one for the card inside. A 5 1/4 for the flower in the center of the card front. And then there's 3 DSP panels that are 1 1/2 by 3 3/4, and that's going to be for the card front. And then I did a 1/2 inch by 4 just to put on the card inside to decorate it because I had a bunch of little scraps left. And I've already pre-done a bow. This is a piece of bumblebee ribbon. This is some of the retiring 2020 to 2022 in color ribbon, 1/4 inch ribbon. So this is some of that in color ribbon, and I really like the way it ties bows. So I hate that it's retiring, but anyway, it's retiring. So I've already tied that bow. And then the other thing we will use is some gems, just some basic rhinestone gems, which I failed to get out. So hold on just a moment. Okay, so we will, I'm going to actually substitute some elegant faceted gems because I do not have any rhinestones in this room with me. And so I will just, and I want to get this recording finished so that I can get to bed actually. So anyway, you're going to score this at 4 1/4 and burnish it with a bone folder. And then I'm going to adhere one of the panels to the card front, the Bumblebee cardstock panels, what I usually do, but it's a little bit easier to line up when you have a little bit bigger border. Same thing for the card inside. I hope I cut that down. I may not have. I may have to trim this. Yeah, because this is 5 1/4 by 4, this needs to be I actually am going to only trim this one down 1/8 of an inch, so it's going to be 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. You could trim it down 1/4 of an inch. So I must have attempted to trim it, it just didn't get straight. So we'll see if that works this time. It won't be a really big border. And I may decide I don't like this and I may cut it down. You know what? I'm going to cut it down. So it's going to be 3 3/4. I'm actually going to turn around because that one's a little bit rough. So 3 3/4 by 5. All right. So let me just try that again. Yeah, that'll work. All right, so before I put this in, I'm going to go ahead and try to stamp my sentiment because if I get it goofed up, I have another chance to fix it. Oh, I have some Rogue Loose Bling. Maybe I'll use those. Oh, anyway, I'm using the sentiment from the Happy Thoughts stamp set, the birthday sentiment about today is great because it's all about you. So I'm using that one and I'm stamping it in Poppy Parade ink. Right in the center of the card. Ooh. And I'm actually going to knock off that little dash because when you trim this thing down to 3 this may not work. Just barely. But if you notice, when you make it 3 3/4 by 5, this is almost too wide for that. So you might not want to cut everything down 1/4 of an inch. So having a 5 1/4 by 4 white panel and 1/8 of an inch bigger on that for this particular stamp would be better. So just FYI. And before I'm going to let that dry for just a second. So before I'm going to adhere this down with some Tombow glue, just because that gives me a little bit of wiggle. And this one is just almost empty, so hopefully it's got enough to get this done. I'm trying to butt it all the way up to the top. And this is just a little bit, because I trimmed it down 1/4 of an inch. This is going to have to be trimmed down, but I'm going to adhere it first, and it looks a little crooked anyway, so it's just as well that I'm trimming a tad off. So once I get that down, then I will flip it over and trim that extra 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch off. And it's just got glue all over it, so now I have glue all over me, but okay. Ooh, luckily flipping that over while it was still wet was okay. All right, so I'm going to adhere this down with Tombow glue as well, just to give myself a little more of that wiggle room, because Fast Fuse has none. So, all right, so I'm going to remember that it has just a little bit bigger border. Yeah, that works well. Try not to touch the words. Okay, so there's the card inside done. And now, because I have the Tombow glue out, I'm going to just kind of lay these down and eyeball where I want them. And actually, you can also tell that, or at least for these two, the pattern, that one is just an oddball that came from somewhere else, I guess, because that one doesn't match up with these two. But these two line up. It's not really going to matter because I'm going to have something over it anyway, but if you just kind of eyeball, make sure you get an even border between the top and the bottom of the card. If you do that first, you kind of look at your borders left to right and top to bottom. Line them up and get them right. Then just center the middle one kind of evenly between the top and the bottom. And actually I'm going to take it off and do it first and glue it down. Oops. Okay. It's okay that I moved it because I can line it back up. Now that I have the middle one there, I can align the top and the bottom evenly. So I'm lining it up on the right hand side here and then kind of looking at my top border. And hopefully the rest of it follows along and comes out straight. So that looks pretty good. And then I'll do the same thing to that third one. Okay. Alrighty. That might not be 100%, but that is close enough. All right, and so now I'm going to stamp the flower, and this time I am using Blushing Bride for the base flower. The big flower. Try and take my finger in the ink and just let it sit for a minute. And then the color I did on top of that is Poppy Parade. And that is that second, more detailed stamp. Did pretty well that time. And then the very center, the little, what I call the Stampin' stamp, I did in Blackberry Bliss. Because this DSP has all of these colors in it. This is probably my favorite DSP in that pack, that crazy wild colors, but it's just so pretty. Well, there's several that are pretty, but I think this one is my favorite. Okay, and then I stamped the leaves and stem in Old Olive ink. I should have put that a little closer to the top, but that's okay. Hopefully I have enough room for at least part of this a leaf. And you're not going to get the whole thing, but that's okay. And I just basically line up the stem at the bottom of that indentation of the flower. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to cut this out with a circle die. I'm using the largest circle die, so I will pause and be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of this. Take the backings off. Adhere that right in the center. Oh, I just realized I forgot to stamp the happy birthday right in the middle. We're going to give it a try and see if I can stamp that. I don't even know if I have that. I don't even have that on a block. So I'm going to try to stamp that in Memento black ink and see if I can make this work. Hang on a minute, I've got to clean a stamp here. I've got ink all over that stamp, so let me clean that just real quick. This is way bigger than it needs to be, but I'm just going to go with it because pray that I don't mess this up. It worked. Yay. Okay. Theoretically, you should do that before you put the dimensionals and stuff on the back and put it on your card front. But anyway, it worked. So now all we have left to do is to put some of these faceted gems on. And if I had the rhinestone basic gems in here, like I put on this original card, I would use those because they are a little bit shinier, but I'm going to go with these. And maybe we'll like these. I'm just going to add a little bit of shine. They kind of disappear, but they do add a little sparkle, so that's fine. Okay, so we'll go with that. I'll put one. Yeah, we're going to just go with 3 and leave it alone. Okay, so that is card number 3 done. I'm going to pause, clean up, and I will do the last card. Okay, this final card is a Best Wishes card, and it's made with Pool Party ink, Pool Party paper and Night of Navy paper. And so it is the traditional 5.5 by 8.5 scored at 4 1/4 card base. I am using I'm going to try on this new one a panel, Night of Navy panel on the back of it, and just see if I like which one we like better. This one does not have it. I'm going to try one with it and just see. So these are both at 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. A 5 1/4 by 4 was for white panel for the card inside. 5 the watercolor wash behind it. And so that will be the card front. But before I start assembling the card front card, I'm going to stamp 2 flowers, and these are both in petal pink, Pool Party base, and then Night of Navy on top. And I did put Wink of Stella on them. I don't know. Yeah, you can see it when I turn it like that. So I did color the 2 flowers with Wink of Stella, and then I also stamped on the inside the same colors. And I did not put a sentiment on the inside. I just left it. And then a Best Wishes across the bottom. And so I will show you how we're going to stamp first and get so that has a minute to dry. So I need 2 of those and 2 of the 2 of the leaves and stems, and I want those in Mossy Meadow. So I had put that ink away, so I had to get that back out. All right, so I'm going to start with the Pool Party. For the base, we're going to do 2 times in Pool Party ink. All my ink pads are really, really juicy now because I've re-inked them all. It's been a long time coming. They've needed it for quite a while. And some of them I actually may have gotten too much on, because you can see that some of these little holes I think would have been a little bit bigger had I not filled it quite so full. But anyway, that's okay. All right, so the second layer I'm doing in the Night of Navy. Oh, well, I'll go back and do the Whisper White panel on the inside in just a second. So you just line this up and lay it down. I've been doing a lot of the different color flowers, but I had not tried any blue, and I thought, you know, Pool Party is a color that's in here, and so, you know, why not? The hydrangeas come in blue, so whatever this flower is, I have never figured out quite what this flower is, but it's really, really pretty. So I'm going to set, well, actually, while I'm here, let me go ahead and do my 2 Mossy Meadow leaves and stems so that I can let this piece dry. And then I will go off camera and cut these all out. And then I will come back in just a few minutes and we will assemble this card and we will be done. All right, so there's those 2. So I'm going to set that aside for a second and do the Whisper White panel while I have all the inks out. Might as well. So this base in Pool Party, and I'm just doing that in the lower left corner of the panel. And if it goes off the edge a little, that's okay. It can or it cannot, either way, whatever you prefer. Mine is all full on. All right, and then we'll repeat that Night of Navy second layer. This is still a little bit wet, but I'm going to go ahead and stamp over it anyway. We'll see how that works. That looks okay. Okay, that is definitely very juicy and needs to sit aside to dry for a minute. All right, so I am going to go off camera, clean up my stamps, because actually, no, I'm not just yet, because I have already cut out this sentiment, but I'm going to stamp it in the Night of Navy real quick. Then I'll go off camera and cut out the last of the pieces and clean up a little bit, and then I will come back and wrap this card up. So I'm trying to center this, and luckily, since this is photopolymer, I stand a pretty good chance of getting it straight. It's straight enough. All right, so now I am going to go off camera, cut the flowers and stems out, clean up my stamps, and then I will be back to assemble this card. So one moment. Okay, so now we will assemble this last card. And what I'm going to do is, as usual, fold and burnish the card base with the bone folder. Crease. Then I'm going to adhere the 2 Night of Navy cardstock panels. Out. So I'm going to switch gears. Okay. I'll go ahead and do this panel because it's pretty much dry and ready to go. Okay. And I have a piece here. I'm trying to decide if I might as well use it. Just going to cut just a little each end of this. I'm not going to go all the way across, just mainly because I want a little at each end. And I am going to leave just ever so slightly, just a little bit of white above it on purpose. Okay, so that's the card inside. Now for the card front, I'm going to adhere this panel down. And actually I'm going to turn it this way because I want the darker color here to be, it will show a little bit more on top. So you can put it however you want, but I am going to do it that way. Alright, and so yet again, you've got that little 1/8 of an inch border. Okay. And then on this one, I'm going to, I'm just going to do, I'm leaving yet again like an 1/8 of an inch to the left, but I'm going to, and I'm putting the silver side up, so I'm going to do just a couple of little glue dots in each corner, and then we're going to repeat that same thing we did with the I'm actually going to put some in the middle here because I know that flower is going to cover right up here on this top part. And actually, you know what? I'm not going to put anything on the, I'm just going to do this because I know the flower is going to be right there. And then I will do a couple of glue dots towards the bottom because I won't have anything down there. So when you do the glue dots, you do have to kind of stretch it just to try to keep it on top of the line. I'll just kind of take my piercing end of the take your pick tool and just try to pull it, but I try to keep it on the gold, if that makes sense. I'm going to do one more on this side and I'm going to call that good. I don't want to do too much, but I did want to have at least a little adhesive down at the bottom. And on this side, actually now that I think about it, I could probably have put one right here and not worried about it because where did that, there it is. Anyway, I'm going to put it down just like this. I could have probably put a little more adhesive at the bottom like I did at the top because the flower would have been over in this area, but that's okay. I've got enough down to hold it. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is put, like I did before, I'm going to put 2 glue dots at the base of each flower and grab the stem just to adhere the stem to the top of the flower, just, you know, at a base level. I think a little bit higher would be good. Okay. All right, there's one. There's 2. Okay, and now I'm going to put dimensionals on the backs of these. One on each leaf. I'm actually going to put one right in the middle over that stem just to give it one more oomph of protection here. All right, and then I'm going to take the backings off. Of this first one. And I'm going to do it at an angle up in the top left corner of the card, going down towards the center. And then on this other one, get all these little backings off. Aye, being contrary. I can't really tell where. Okay, they're all off. I'm really sticking to them. All right, and so this one I'm going to line up going the opposite direction with my big leaves, or big petals of the flower over the stem of the other one. And then I'll kind of just cover it like that. And then the sentiment, I want to put some mini dimensionals on. Several across it. And then again, take their little backings off. Like I said before, I have a harder time working with these little guys. I don't know why, but I do. All right. And then I'm just laying that down in the lower right corner of the card. And I'm going to move it. Well, no, I'm not, because I put so many dimensionals. It's not moving. I would have, should have, could have. I did on this card, and I should have on this one. Moved it a little to the left so I could cover the stem, but it is what it is at this point. So now what I'm going to do, I'm using these are actually Holiday Rhinestone Basic Gems, and they come in 5 different colors. And one of them is this pool party color. And so I'm going to use several of these scattered in the pool party area. I'm using the bigger of them. And then I also did 2 of the little, these are Night of Navy, I believe, just on the sentiment. Just like that. Because I think these are just so gorgeous, these rhinestone gems. All right, and so just like that, all 4 cards are done. So bring back the ones I've already done. And if you guys were here, you know what I would do. I would ask you your favorite. But since you're not, you can actually just leave me a comment and let me know what your favorite card is out of these 4. And for those of you who took my other 2 classes, hopefully this was a great idea. One of my customers mentioned that she only used the card set or a stamp set once in a class, and so it kind of gave me the idea of doing more than one class with the same stamp set. So I've called it the Art Gallery 1, 2, 3 class, and so we did 3 different classes with this same bundle. And so I will say that this bundle has probably been the one that I have used the most ever in Stampin' Up history of me. And so this is like our 10th or 11th card idea from this. And so hopefully you like it. And if you do, give me a thumbs up. And I hope to hear from you soon. Until next time, happy stamping.